In the early days of the earth, when the land was fresh and green and the rivers ran clear, people began to fill the world. They built their homes from stone and wood, raised flocks and herds, planted fields, and watched the seasons pass. The sun warmed the hills, the stars marked the night, and the people lived long and grew many. But as the generations passed, so did the hearts of men begin to turn away from their Maker. The Lord God, who had formed the heavens and the earth, looked down upon what he had created, and his heart was grieved. For though the land was rich and the sky still bright, the thoughts of mankind had grown dark. Men no longer walked in the ways of God. They no longer lifted their voices in thanks or listened for his word. Instead, they chose violence. They filled their days with greed, their nights with cruelty. They quarreled and stole, taking what they pleased, harming the innocent, and caring little for justice or truth. The Lord watched the earth, and sorrow filled him. It was not made for this. The hearts of men are full of wickedness, the Lord said. All their thoughts are evil. From morning until night, I shall not allow it to continue. The decision was not quick nor without pain, but the world had become a place of ruin. Like a tree hollowed by rot, it could no longer stand. I will send a great flood, the Lord said. I will wipe away all that breathes upon the earth, but I will not forget those who still walk in my way. And among all the people upon the land, there was one man whose heart remained faithful. His name was Noah. Noah was a quiet man, a worker of the land. He feared God and lived with honor. He was not loud among the people, nor known for wealth or strength, but God saw his heart and it was steady. While the world turned to evil, Noah walked in the light of the Lord. He did not follow the crowds, nor did he mock what was holy. He kept the ways of righteousness, even when no one else did. And so the Lord spoke to him. Noah, God said, I have seen your faith. The earth will be covered with water, and all living things will perish. But you I will spare, you and your household. Noah listened in silence. Build for yourself an ark, God continued. Make it of gopher wood and seal it with pitch. Make it strong and long, with rooms inside. Bring into it 2 of every living creature, male and female, and store food for them. For I shall bring rain upon the earth, and all flesh shall be swept away. Though Noah had never seen such a thing, and though no man living had witnessed rain falling from the sky, he did not question. He bowed his head. As you command, Lord, he said. So Noah set to work. He gathered timber, cut the trees, and shaped each plank with care. His sons helped him, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and together they began to build the ark, just as God had described. Day by day, the sound of hammers rang through the valley. Neighbors came to watch. They laughed and pointed. What are you building, Noah? They asked. A vessel, he replied. For what? There's no water here. For the rain that is coming. They laughed even louder. But Noah did not answer with anger. He continued his work, steady and obedient. For his trust was not in what he could see, but in the word that had come from God. And so the days passed, and the ark began to rise. While the world grew darker with sin, a single family worked beneath the sky, holding fast to the promise of the Lord, and the heavens watched in silence. Morning by morning, as dew lay upon the fields, Noah and his sons labored beneath the open sky. The wood was cut and stacked in neat rows. Hammers echoed through the hills. The air smelled of pitch and fresh cedar. From a distance, the great structure began to reach taller than the trees, broader than any house built by man. It was not a ship shaped for the sea, for there was no sea nearby, nor was it made for speed or beauty. It was built for one purpose alone, to carry life through the judgment to come. People passed by and stared. Some laughed, others scoffed. There he is again, the old man in his wooden mountain, still building. Noah, has the rain come yet? Some brought their children to point and jeer. Others simply shook their heads and went on their way. But no one truly believed. Noah, however, said nothing. His hands stayed steady. His sons, though they too heard the mocking, did not stop. The Lord had spoken, and that was enough. By evening, when their tools were laid aside, Noah would sit in silence. He would watch the light fade from the hills and speak to the Lord in prayer. "Oh God, let my hands not falter. Let my heart remain faithful until the day you bring the waters." And the Lord heard him. The ark grew, each day measured by cubit in command. 3 levels were built inside, with rooms and storage, just as the Lord had instructed. The beams were joined with pegs, the seams sealed with thick pitch. Not a crack was left unguarded. Not a wall was left weak. It was slow work, but it was holy work. And the world went on. Weddings were celebrated. Markets opened. Harvests gathered. Men chased gold. Women danced. And children played in the streets. But their hearts were far from God. No one listened to Noah. No one cared to ask why the ark was being built. Noah had once hoped that someone would stop and hear and turn their hearts back to the Lord. But none did. Still, he kept building. For Noah was not just preparing for a flood of water. He was obeying the voice of the one who made the earth and the heavens. Years passed, and the ark was nearly complete. It's great. Doors stood tall on one side, awaiting the day it would be shut. Inside, the floors were swept, the rooms ready. Stores of food were gathered, grain and fruit, herbs and dried meat. And still, no rain fell. The sky remained blue, the fields green. But Noah's faith did not weaken. The voice of the Lord had spoken, and though the clouds were silent, Noah believed. Then one day, something strange happened. Out of the forests and valleys, creatures began to stir. Birds flew not in flocks, but in pairs wingtip to wingtip, quiet and unafraid. Beasts of the fields, deer and oxen, lions and lambs walked, not with fear, but with calm purpose. Creeping things came from the shadows each, in twos. They came not as hunters nor as prey. They came in peace, and they came to Noah. His sons stood in wonder. Even the air seemed hushed. "The Lord is calling them," Noah whispered. And the people who had once mocked him watched in awe. But even then, though their eyes saw the impossible, their hearts did not change. So the animals entered the ark, male and female, each kind in their turn. Noah stood at the door, guiding them into their places. His wife and his sons' wives prepared the stalls and laid out the food. The door remained open, and the sky remained clear. But not for long. The last of the animals entered the ark as the sun hung low upon the hills. 2 by 2 they came, silent, orderly, unafraid. From the largest to the least, each creature passed through the tall door and took its place within the vessel God had commanded Noah to build. The people watched. Some had followed the animals from the forests, stunned to see such a thing. Others gathered near the ark, their laughter now uncertain, their words more hushed than before. "What does it mean?" one whispered. "Perhaps it is only a trick," said another. "A strange thing. Yes, but surely no flood is coming. Look, the sky is clear." Still, they did not turn their hearts to the Lord. Noah stood at the great door. He looked out over the people, men, women, children, old of them, given more time than they deserve. Time to listen, time to repent. He opened his mouth, and once more he spoke. "The Lord is patient, but his word will come to pass. The waters are near. Turn back to him while the door is still open." But no one came. They turned away, shaking their heads, some with pity, some with pride. And so Noah stepped inside the ark. His wife came behind him. Then Shem and his wife, Ham and his wife, Japheth and his wife, 8 souls in all. The animals were settled. The food was stored. The wood groaned gently as it took the weight of God's command. Then, without hands, without ropes or mender, great door began to close. It moved slowly, as if pushed by the breath of heaven itself. Wood creaked, iron groaned. Dust rose from the earth, and with a final sound that echoed across the valley, the door was shut. By God's own hand, the ark was sealed. Inside, a stillness settled over the rooms. Noah sat quietly. The lamplight flickered on the wooden wall. His sons moved softly among the stalls, checking on the animals, tying ropes, arranging stores. It had begun, but outside, the people saw no change. The skies were still blue. The sun still warmed the fields. Some laughed again. Some called to the ark, "Where is your flood?" Noah, "Shall we bring you water to drink?" They returned to their homes. They returned to their fields. And for 7 days, the earth remained dry. But Noah waited. He did not doubt. The Lord had spoken, and the Lord would act. On the 7th day, the wind changed. A great stillness fell upon the land. The sky darkened not with a dim gray of cloud, but with a deep, swelling heaviness. The sun vanished behind a curtain of storm. The ground trembled. Then, from above, it came rain, not gentle drops, but sudden, endless torrents. The heavens broke open. Water poured from the skies in sheets, pounding the earth like never before. The people ran from their homes, shielding their faces, but it did not stop. Then the ground cracked, and from beneath the surface of the earth, fountains burst forth, rivers springing upward, as if the very deep had been awakened. Water surged from the soil, the mountains, the valleys. Streams became rivers. Rivers became roaring floods. The low places vanished. The people fled to higher ground. They cried out. They pounded the side of the ark. "Noah, let us in." But the door was shut, and it was not Noah who had closed it. It was the Lord. Inside, the ark creaked and groaned, but it stood firm. It rose with the waters, lifted like a leaf upon a storm. And Noah prayed. The rain did not stop. It poured from the heavens in streams and rivers, beating the earth with unrelenting force. Day and night, the skies roared. The wind howled through the trees. The fountains beneath the earth surged upward like mighty geysers, as though the ground itself could no longer hold back the deep. The people had fled their homes, their towns, their fields. They climbed to rooftops. They clung to high places, but the waters followed. Hills disappeared. Villages were swallowed. Voices cried out through the storm, but the ark had already risen. Inside, the great vessel groaned and swayed, but it did not break. The pitch held firm. The wood remained sound. The ark floated atop the chaos, carried by the hand of the Lord. Noah sat quietly. His hands were folded, his eyes closed. His sons and their wives moved softly through the lower chambers, feeding the animals, checking the stores. The creatures were calm, more still than they had ever been, as if they too felt the weight of something beyond understanding. The sound of the rain was everywhere. It drummed on the roof above and echoed through the hole below. But there was no panic, only reverence. Within the ark, there was fear, but it was a holy fear. A fear that bowed the head and steadied the heart. Outside, the waters rose higher. Fields vanished. Trees disappeared. The streams that once nourished the land now swallowed it. Even the proudest mountains were not spared. The people who once laughed now wept. They pounded rocks, called out to heaven, and searched for shelter that no longer existed. But no answer came, for the time of mercy had passed. The door had been opened. Now it was sealed. The rain continued for 40 days and 40 nights. And then, as suddenly as it began, the skies grew quiet. The clouds broke and drifted away. The fountains of the deep were still. No more thunder. No more rising. Just silence. The earth beneath the waters was gone. Only the ark remained alone adrift upon an endless sea. Noah opened a small window near the top and looked out. All around him was water. No land. No trees. No birds, only the soft hush of wind and wave. And so they waited. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. The ark floated gently under the shifting sky. Sometimes the winds were strong and the waters rough. Other times the sea was still and the sun lit the world in gold. Inside, Noah and his family worked with quiet diligence. The animals were fed. The stores were managed. The lamps were trimmed. They kept watch not just with their eyes, but with their heart. For God had spoken once, and they trusted he would speak again. Then one day, after many months had passed, the ark slowed. There was a creaking from beneath, then stillness. They had come to rest. Though no land could yet be seen, the ark no longer moved with the waters. It had come to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah stepped back from the window. The waters are lowering, he whispered. But still, he waited. Weeks passed. Noah sent out a raven, and it flew to and fro, but it found no resting place. Then he sent out a dove. It returned, for the earth was not yet dry. 7 days later, he sent it again, and this time it came back with something in its beak of fresh olive leaf. Noah's heart lifted. The trees were returning. Life was beginning again. But Noah did not rush to leave the ark. Though the sun shone and the sky was clear, he would wait for the voice of the Lord. He had begun this journey by faith on. He would finish it the same way. And the ark, quiet now, rested upon the mountain, waiting. The sun was high above the mountains, and the winds were gentle now. The skies, once torn open with wrath, were clear and wide. For months, the ark had rested on the slopes of Ararat, its heavy frame unmoving, its chambers filled with quiet breath and faithful waiting. Noah looked out through the window again. The waters had lowered. Hills now stood where once there was only sea. Trees, bent but not broken, reached toward the sky. The air smelled of damp earth and green things. Still, Noah did not leave. He remembered the voice that had warned him of the flood. He remembered the Lord's command to enter the ark. And he knew that the door would not open until that same voice spoke again. So he waited. And then, at last, the Lord said, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife, your sons and their wives. Bring out every living thing with you, that they may fill the earth again." Noah fell to his knees, not because he was eager to go, but because the Lord had spoken. He bowed his head and gave thanks not for safety alone, but for mercy. Then, with care and reverence, the great door of the ark was opened. Sunlight poured into the vessel. The air stirred gently. For the first time in a year, the world lay before them. Noah stepped onto the earth. The ground was soft beneath his feet. Birds cried out above, circling in freedom. Animals stirred from their pens and moved into the light 2 by 2, hoof and claw, wing and tail. They did not scatter wildly, but walked into the new world as though guided by a quiet hand. The sky was blue, the soil dark and rich. Streams ran clear once more. Trees lifted their branches to heaven. It was a world washed clean, and Noah, seeing the goodness of it, built an altar. There, on the bare earth, he gathered stones and wood and made a fire. He offered to the Lord a sacrifice not out of duty, but from the depth of his heart. He did not speak many words, but his worship rose like smoke into the sky, and the Lord was pleased. "I will never again curse the ground because of man," God said. "Though the thoughts of his heart are inclined toward evil from his youth, I will never again destroy all living things as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease." It was not a promise earned, but a promise given. And the Lord looked upon Noah with favor. Then God blessed Noah and his sons. "Be fruitful and multiply," he said. "Fill the earth once more. The fear of you shall be upon all the beasts of the field and the birds of the air. I give them into your hand, and I give you every plant and fruit and green thing to eat just as I gave them to the creatures. Only do not eat the blood, for life is in the blood." And with that, God spoke something new, something the earth had never heard before. "I make a covenant with you and with your children and with every living creature that came out of the ark. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy all flesh. Never again shall the waters cover the earth. Then, lifting his hand to the sky, the Lord gave a sign. The clouds parted, and there, in the soft mist of the morning light, a great bow appeared. Its colors shone like flame and water, like fire and jewels. The rainbow arched across the sky, a promise painted by the very hand of God. "This is the sign of my covenant," God said. "When I see it, I will remember, and so shall you." And Noah looked upon the rainbow and knew that the world would never be the same. The flood had ended, the ark had served its purpose, and the earth, cleansed by the waters and blessed by the Lord, was now ready for life to begin again. The flood was past, but its memory clung to the hills like mist at dawn. The earth was quiet in those early days, soft with new growth, silent under the vastness of the sky. But beneath that stillness, life stirred. From the slopes of Ararat to the wide plains below, the world was beginning again. Noah and his family stepped carefully upon the earth, planting anew, gathering food, building shelters. Each task was simple, yet holy. They were the first steps of a world reborn. The animals had spread out, each to its place. Birds taking flight, herds seeking grass, the creeping things of the ground burrowing once more into the soil. And Noah, though he had once built an ark with his hands, now built a life with his faith. But God had not finished speaking. One evening, as the stars blinked into view and the wind moved gently through the trees, the Lord called to Noah again. "This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you," he said, "and with every living creature, the bird, the beasts, all that came out of the ark with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood. Never again shall the earth be destroyed in this way." And the rainbow, shining in the sky, remained as a sign not for a season, but for all generations to come. It was the first covenant spoken not only to Noah, but to the whole earth, a promise between God and all that breathed. In time, Noah's family grew. His sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth raised their children, and their children raised children after them. From these three, the nations of the earth would one day be born. Shem's line would walk along with the knowledge of the Lord. From his children would rise a people who remembered God and carried his name. Ham's line would spread wide into great cities and powerful kingdoms, full of strength and boldness. Though not always in the fear of the Lord, Japheth's line would stretch far into coasts and mountains, into distant lands, filling the earth with many tongues and tribes. And still, the sign of the covenant stood above them, quiet and sure, whenever rain fell upon the land. But though peace reigned in those early days, not all hearts remained pure. One day, in the quietness of his tent, Noah planted a vineyard. He tended it as he did all things with patience and care. And when the grapes were ripe, he gathered them and pressed them. The sweet juice became wine. And Noah drank, and he drank too much. And the man who once stood before God as a preacher of righteousness lay uncovered in his tent, unaware of his shame. Then Ham, his son, came into the tent and saw his father. But instead of turning away or covering what was unseemly, he left and told his brothers Shem and Japheth, hearing what had happened, took a garment. They walked backward into the tent, their faces turned away, and gently laid it over their father. When Noah awoke and learned what had taken place, sorrow filled his heart. He blessed Shem and Japheth for their honor, but for Ham's line, a shadow fell. Canaan shall be a servant to his brothers, Noah said, not out of wrath, but as one who had seen what would come. And so, even in the new world, sin crept softly through the doors of men's hearts. Yet the Lord's covenant remained. And Noah lived long after the flood, 350 years. In that time, his children grew, their tents spread, and the stories of the flood were told from one campfire to another. They spoke of the ark. They spoke of the animals. They spoke of the rain that never stopped. But most of all, They spoke of the God who speaks in mercy and remembers his promises. When Noah was 950 years old, he died, and he was gathered to his fathers. But the world he left behind was full of life. The mountains stood, the waters had receded, and the covenant still glowed in the sky. The sons of Noah multiplied, and their children after them, until the valleys filled with people, and the hills echoed with voices once more. Shepherds led flocks through green pastures. Farmers turned to soil and harvested grain. Craftsmen shaped tools, and mothers sang songs to their little ones under the open sky. The world, once washed clean, now stirred with the breath of nations. They spoke one tongue and shared one story, how the waters had come, how the ark had floated, and how God had shown mercy when none was deserved. The memory of the flood remained like a shadow at the edge of the firelight, and for a time, men walked with caution, remembering the Lord. But as the years passed, so did the reverence. Hearts began to grow proud again. There came a day when the people journeying eastward found a broad plain in the land of Shinar. The ground was flat, the soil rich, and the skies clear. There they settled not with thankfulness, but with ambition. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." And they built not just homes or wells, but something far greater. "Let us build for ourselves a city," they said, "and a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves so we are not scattered over the earth." They did not build to honor the Lord. They built to replace him. The tower rose, brick by brick, stone upon stone. It reached high above the fields, a spear toward heaven. The people watched it climb and said in their hearts, "Now we are mighty. Now we are great. Now we shall not be forgotten." But God saw. He who watches over the nations looked down upon the plain of Shinar. He saw the tower, and he saw the pride that built it. "Behold," he said, "they are one people, and they speak one language. Now nothing they plan will be withheld from them. Let us go down and confuse their speech, so they will not understand one another." So the Lord came down, and in a moment the people began to speak with different tongues. One man called for a stoning. Another brought him water. One shouted for help, and another answered with confusion. Voices rose. Arguments broke out. Workers scattered. The tower stood unfinished, half-born and broken. What had risen in pride now crumbled in disarray. The city became known as Babel, for there the Lord had confused the language of all the earth. And from there the people was scattered. They left the tower behind and spread to the corners of the world. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, sailed seas. They formed tribes and nations. They sang new songs and spoke new tongues. But whether near or far, each one carried within them the same truth spoken long ago to their fathers. The Lord is God, and his will cannot be replaced. The world was wide once more. Nations rose. Kings ruled. Cities were built, but none of them could ever stretch high enough to touch heaven, nor build strong enough to stand without the Lord. And among these peoples, scattered far and wide, the line of Shem remained, quiet, unseen, but remembered by God. For though the tower had fallen, and men had turned again to their own ways, the Lord had not forgotten his promise. From the sons of Noah through the family of Shem, he would one day raise a man whose faith would shake the earth, not with flood, nor with fire, but with trust. And through him, a blessing would come not only to one nation, but to all. The generations passed like rivers flowing through the land, quiet, steady, unceasing. From the sons of Noah spread many peoples, and from those peoples grew nations. They filled valleys, crossed deserts, and settled in lands far from Ararat. Their tongues differed, but their blood traced back to one boat, one family, one beginning after the rain. Yet even as men multiplied, they forgot again. They forgot the flood. They forgot the door that closed. They forgot the rainbow that still glowed in the sky after a storm. Some carved idols. Others chased gold. Many ruled with cruelty and bowed only to their own pride. And though the world had started anew, the old sin still lived in the hearts of men. But the Lord, who judges in justice, also remembers in mercy, he had promised. And the Lord does not forget. In the line of Shem, 10 generations after Noah, a man was born in a land called Yor, a city of moon worshippers and stone gods. His name was Abram. He was not rich with power, nor surrounded by army, but his heart, like Noah's, was open to the Lord. And one day, under the stars of a quiet night, God spoke again, not through thunder, not with flood, but with a whisper of promise. Abram, the Lord said, leave your country and your father's house. Go to the land I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. It was the next chapter. The ark had carried life through judgment. Now a journey would begin that would carry hope through history. From Noah's obedience came the saving of the world. From Abram's faith would come the healing of it. Through his children and their children after him would come kings and prophets, shepherds and warriors, judges and scribes, and through them after many years and many trials would come a Savior, not in a boat, but in a manger, not to escape wrath, but to bear it, not to save from flood, but from sin. And in him the Lord would fulfill every promise ever spoken under rain or rainbow. So the rainbow still shines after the storm, not as a memory only, but as a sign that the earth belongs to the Lord, that his mercy endures, that even when the hearts of men fail, his purpose does not. And from Noah's ark to Abram's tent to the hill called Calvary, the story is the same. God remembers, God speaks, and God saves.